So we're seeing the fight between Yuta and Sukuna in this chapter. Yuta inside of Gojo's body, because we saw in the previous that he was able to use Kenjaku's curse technique to switch his brain with Gojo's body. And he's not doing too hot against Sukuna, as we kind of expected, because, you know, he's not Gojo. And I guess that goes into the iconic sequence that we saw between Gojo and Geto before Geto had defected from Jujutsu High, where he asked Gojo, you know, is he the strongest because he's Gojo, or is he Gojo because he's the strongest? And, you know, I guess it turns out that he's the strongest because he's Gojo, and not vice versa, if that makes sense. But at the end of this chapter, we're also seeing that Rika is fully manifested, as it straight up says, and she's like holding Yuta's implied corpse, question mark. We'll get into that because we're going to go into a lot of speculation about what could be happening with Rika here, because it's very important that Gege is showing us this, of course, and I want to talk about that a lot because we're going on a 2-week break. In fact, it's going to be 21 days until we get a new chapter after this, and also this chapter is only 7 pages long, and the typical Jump chapter is around like 15 pages, somewhere 15, 18, somewhere around there. So very short. The author, Gege, needs to take a break. He's not feeling well or something. But at the end of the previous chapter, we saw that both Sukuna and Yuta activated their domain expansions. And we knew that Yuta was pretty much going to employ the same strategy that Gojo used against Sukuna with their domains, because when Gojo used his domain originally against Sukuna, it just kept getting destroyed, because Gojo has like a orthodox type domain where it's just like a black sphere, as where we know Sukuna has an open domain which does not close itself like a sphere, and it's kind of like a flat plane, meaning that it can attack Gojo's barrier from the outside and just destroy it. So what Gojo did was shrink it down to like the size of a basketball or something to make it more compressed and dense. And he also reversed the polarity of it, kind of, by switching the inside structural integrity with the outside so that it would be reinforced. Now that's not being mentioned in this chapter, but I guess it's just implied that he's doing it. Unless he doesn't do it, I don't know. It seems like Gege kind of rushed through this chapter, and it's understandable. It's only 7 pages long, so I guess he just had to get it out. But Yuta does say that he was training in Gojo's body during the time skip, you know, when everybody was training, preparing for this final battle against Sukuna and Kenjaku, you know, after Gojo was released from the prison realm. And he was able to do that with Yui's curse technique. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, Factor. And also, if you're familiar with HelloFresh, which I've personally used and loved, they're in partnership with Factor. Eat stress-free this summer with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meal. Every fresh, never frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, including popular options like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, or Vegan and Veggie. Also discover more than 60 add-ons every week like breakfast, on-the-go lunch, snacks, and beverages to help you stay fueled and feel good all day long. Guys, I've been using Factor for about a year now, and I love it. I don't have to worry about going out to the store or high delivery prices anymore. I can just grab a Factor when I need it, and it's right there, and it's so good. I tried the roasted tomato and feta cavatappi with broccoli and red peppers. This thing was amazing. The cavatappi was cooked perfectly, and the roasted feta and tomatoes go so well together. I also tried the chicken piccata with cauliflower mash and broccoli. The chicken is always perfect with Factor, and the piccata sauce is so creamy and flavorful with the cauliflower mash and broccoli. So guys, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code Zhoniin50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's Zhoniin50 at factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. Thanks, guys. Because apparently on top of teleporting people, he can also switch souls between bodies. We saw Yuji do it with Kusakabe. That helped Yuji develop his barrier techniques. And the same thing happened with Yuta and Gojo. Now, I also talked about this before in my spoilers video, but it just seems like such a waste because they were like essentially banking on Gojo to die here. And like getting all of this preparation just for this weird elaborate plan for Kotsu to take over Gojo's body, just for this to happen and him to get stomped anyway. It just seems, like I said before, unnecessary. With what they had on their side, you know, Higuruma with the Executioner's Sword and Todo with his Vibra Slap Boogie Woogie and Gojo, they could have probably killed Sukuna within minutes if they really wanted to, but you know, I guess it just would have been too easy, right? And I'll go more into Gojo and Yuta swapping bodies because it's probably going to play into what's happening at the end of the chapter here. But just like before, Yuta essentially has 3 minutes to defeat Sukuna at this point, because he needs to beat him down within their domains so that Sukuna is unable to use Malevolent Shrine. Now Sukuna kind of has to do the same thing. He needs to defeat Akotsu in less than 3 minutes because he's using another Binding Vow, go figure. Originally, he had like the Binding Vow to be able to manifest Malevolent Shrine in the first place because, you know, he's so fatigued and battle worn and brain damaged and all that stuff. Because, you know, we see that he's still using that weird, incomplete version of Malevolent Shrine that doesn't even look like a shrine, it looks like some kind of monster. And that allowed him to use it for 99 seconds. Now, the Binding Vow that he's using instead here is removing that 99-second time limit, but it's minimizing the range of Sukuna's domain to just surrounding the outline of Akotsu's domain, so just like that basketball essentially. And then he says, well, you know, I'll kill him in less than 3 minutes, and then after that he'll expand the range and just kill everybody else that's in the vicinity, you know, like Yuji, Todo, whoever else is there, because he was on his way to doing that before. And another, you know, time limit that comes into play here is Akotsu using Kenjaku's curse technique to take over Gojo's body. Like, it can only essentially last for 5 minutes because that's like how his curse technique works. Once Rika is fully manifested, he can use the copied curse techniques for like 5 minutes, and that was the whole question. It's like, okay, so once the 5 minutes is up, is he still going to be in control of Gojo's body, or is the curse technique just run its course and then he goes brain dead or something? Still don't know, but I would say it's probably not going to work out in his favor, because if he could just infinitely be Gojo, then that would kind of steal Yuji's thunder. Unless Gege doesn't care about that and something else happens. But coming back into the fight, going into Akotsu's plan here, trying to beat down Sukuna, you know, enough so that he can't use Malevolent Shrine, he tries to suck Sukuna towards him using Gojo's blue application of his Limitless Curse technique, which is just like when you enhance the curse technique with cursed energy and you amplify it, he can create like this vacuum type ability. However, it doesn't work on Sukuna because Sukuna he's Sukuna, and he can just pretty much do whatever he wants essentially. And by that I mean he can use domain amplification while activating his domain expansion. Now, domain amplification is where you basically like kind of coat yourself in a domain in a way, and this allows you to bypass curse techniques. This is how Sukuna was able to fight Gojo in the first place, because, you know, if he didn't do that, he wouldn't be able to touch Gojo due to how Infinity works. And in order to use the domain amplification, you need to give up the ability to use your curse technique. But I guess since you're using your domain expansion, that's kind of like the workaround to it. And you kind of need to be Sukuna in order to do both at the same time anyway. Like, it's such a high level tier 0 technique and strategy that it even surprised Gojo when it initially happened. And this surprises Akotsu. Like, he didn't know that Sukuna could do this. And he gets caught off guard by Sukuna just bypassing Limitless and just punching him in the face. And Sukuna says, naturally, what occurred within a domain, your crows wouldn't be able to know, you know, and relay that information to everyone else. The crows referring to Mei-Mei's curse technique, you know, the way that she can manipulate them and receive info through the battle and whatnot, as well as like transmit that live stream, which we haven't got any updates on. Maybe she doesn't even have any left. I'm not sure. But this is interesting because I think that Akotsu should technically have Gojo's memories, right? And I say that because of Kenjaku's curse technique. So we gotta go to the Jujutsu Kaisen data book for this, because the page for Kenjaku where it talks about his curse technique, it says, a taboo technique wrapped in mystery that controls a physical body, curse technique and all. And that still applies to today. Like, we still haven't gotten a full breakdown of what Kenjaku's curse technique is. We don't even know the name of it, if there is even a name. But going further, it says, in addition to the sorcerer's own innate curse technique, it allows them to use the innate curse techniques already ingrained into the controlled body and take on their memories as well. Now, either Gege forgot this, which is possible, but I'm not saying that's the definitive answer here, or maybe it has something to do with Akotsu's copy ability, because while he does copy curse techniques, he doesn't copy them like a facsimile. It's not a one-for-one recreation of the curse technique, as we've seen before. Like, when he recreates the abilities, they're kind of altered somewhat, at least in some cases. Like when he was replicating Drew's curse technique, which needs a whole video in itself breaking it down, but where he essentially creates like barriers, and the barriers can like force these attacks on you in a way. It's like a manual domain expansion that's not actually a domain expansion, if that makes sense. He used like these little Rika bats to manifest, as to where like Drew used like these bird type things and this big giant mole rat. It was very ambiguous when it was happening because we didn't get any explanation on exactly what he was doing. So maybe it could work like that. Maybe he can swap bodies, but he doesn't get like the full extent of like regaining the memories of the host as well, because I don't know, maybe it would be too easy, or maybe Gege just need to exclude that so that he would be surprised at this moment so that Sukuna could get the, upper hand on him. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it doesn't even really matter. But that's where that portion of the fight ends, with Sukuna just beating Akotsu down, bypassing Infinity, using domain amplification while still in his domain expansion. Then we're cutting away to Rika, and she's crying while fully manifested, holding Akotsu's supposed dead body here, saying Yuta. And then in the very final panel, we see a close-up of Akotsu's face, or the body of Akotsu's face. Now, Rika being fully manifested, of course, is necessary so that I guess Akotsu could use Kenjaku's curse technique in the first place, but also she could just use her full power and act autonomously at this point. And I guess she's still back at Jujutsu High or wherever they were with Shoko and the others that were like in the medic portion of the team, where Yui was transporting the injured and deceased members of the fight. Now, either she's going to go berserk and have like some kind of crazy unleashed power up that we haven't seen before. Like maybe we haven't seen 100% of Rika's power, or maybe there's some kind of maximum technique that Akotsu has that Rika can use. I don't know if the beam cannon thing, the cursed energy blast that she's able to do, is like the maximum technique, because it's never stated that it is. But even then, that's still not enough. It was only really powerful enough to match Ryu's granite blast. Maybe it can surpass that at this point, I don't know. But I still don't think that's enough to necessarily kill Sukuna, even in his weakened state at this point. So she could probably do something else. I'm thinking if it's not some kind of fantastical thing that I'm going to go into, then it's just some kind of thing that Rika can do. Or she just straight up joins Akotsu in Gojo's body to fight against Sukuna here, and then, I don't know, eventually does something to help Yuji end him in some way. Now, the other fantastical option here is them zooming up on Akotsu's face here at the end. Maybe it means that Gojo is gonna wake up in Akotsu's body. I know, in the previous review, I gave up on Gojo coming back because it seemed like it was pretty much done at that point, but now it seems like it's another possibility, because I guess Shoko put Gojo's brain into Akotsu's body, right? Because his head is like sealed, right? I don't think we see the stitch mark on his head unless it's covered up, but his head is like together. So what did she do with Gojo's brain? Did you just throw it out, put it in a jar or something? Or is it in Akotsu's body here? And is Rika gonna do something to bring Akotsu back to life? Because he still has the ring on his body. And it goes back to what I was talking about earlier about how Gojo and Akotsu did like the body swap training, the soul swap training thing. So while Akotsu was in Gojo's body, Gojo was in his. And they were doing something. So does that mean that Gojo's also going to come back as Akotsu? I mean, that would be pretty crazy. And I don't know, at least it would have Gojo come back in some way, even though it would be weird. You know, Gojo in Akotsu's body, Akotsu in Gojo's body, and then they're both existing at the same time. Not really sure, but that is, I guess, a possibility here. And then it's like, where does Yuji come into play here? Because Yuji is like just watching the black sphere with Todo. That's literally what they're doing in this chapter. We only see them once in the beginning. So, not really sure, but let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. And if you liked the video, please give it a like. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.